On September 8, 1976, in the Yumbuku Village Hospital, near the tiny Ebola River in what is now the Democratic Republic of Congo, a schoolteacher died, becoming the first known victim of a still mysterious disease. The current Ebola outbreak in West Africa is by far the worst in the short history of this strange virus, and it's ignited a wave of alarm and generalized freakout around the world. But today we're going to give you a detailed, accurate explanation of this disease to try and give this whole situation a nice, calm, comforting, scientific hug. There's a lot we still don't know about Ebola. We don't know how long it's been around. We aren't sure where it hides. We don't know exactly how it kills or who may be immune. But there's also a lot we do know. Ebola is a big deal, and it should be taken very seriously. But the most frightening adversary is the one that we don't understand. As science writer David Quammen wrote, Ebola is no death angel. It's just a virus. Ebola virus describes a genus of viruses in the family Filoviridae. While most viruses house themselves in geometric armor that would make Buckminster Fuller proud, this family of viruses package their genome inside long, worm-like filaments. The Ebola virus, the one responsible for the 2014 outbreak, is one of the 5 known viruses in that genus, a strain called the Zaire Ebola virus. When we say someone has Ebola, they have Ebola virus disease, which is a severe infection with a laundry list of side effects, including abdominal pain, headache, fever, nausea, vomiting, sore throat, loss of appetite, joint pain, diarrhea, bleeding from the gums, rash, and hiccups. Now, books like 1994's Hot Zone are filled with accounts of liquefied organs and bleeding eyes, but that doesn't really happen. Ultimately, Ebola kills through massive organ failure, which is a nice way of saying that the body's machinery just breaks down from damage. Diseases like Ebola seem to pop up out of nowhere, madder than a cat in a bathtub. But they have to come from somewhere, and that somewhere is usually animals. We call this process of animal-to-human crossover infection zoonosis. Now, zoonosis is a complex and fascinating subject that really deserves its own video. Note to self, make video about zoonosis. They include swine flu, SARS, West Nile, and the bubonic plague. And rabies, HIV, Lyme disease, Marburg, hantavirus, dengue, bird flu, you know, all the really fun ones. Zoonotic diseases hide out in reservoir hosts, which are animals that carry the infection with little to no illness, until humans, spreading ever deeper into the wild, come into contact by handling or eating them, which gives the virus an opportunity to jump into our species.
How do you like your bat, Dusty? Medium rare.
Now, current evidence points to fruit bats as at least one of Ebola's natural reservoirs. Disturbingly, Ebola seems to regularly spill over to chimpanzee and gorilla populations with even deadlier consequences. This ability to lie silently in wait like a deadly viral ninja is what makes diseases like Ebola so worrisome. So how scared should we be? To be completely honest, unless you live in a very specific part of West Africa, are traveling to a very specific part of West Africa, or you are a medical professional treating people who currently are infected with the Ebola virus, you're probably not going to get Ebola. But there are a few reasons that Ebola is unlikely to set off a global game of deadly pandemic dominoes.
Guess what, everybody? That's an outbreak.
As diseases go, Ebola is no record setter in the infection department. The basic reproduction number, or R0 for a disease, describes how many new people typically get sick from one sick person. Now, take a disease like measles, and that number's high, but Ebola's R0 is much lower, even lower than influenza. One reason for that is because of how Ebola is transmitted. People infected with the flu virus can walk down the street free of symptoms, but spewing out virus like an infection fountain. But Ebola isn't contagious before symptoms show up, which means that with careful medical observation, it can be quarantined. Also, you cannot catch Ebola just by sitting in the same room or on a train or on an airplane with someone who is infected, unless you make out with them or they vomit on your face or something. Infection requires direct contact with the bodily fluids of someone who is showing symptoms or has recently died. Airborne viruses like influenza must survive for long periods of time in the air without drying, and they're usually concentrated in the lungs. Ebola doesn't do either of those things. It just didn't evolve to infect through the air. And there is no indication that the virus could go airborne. None. Now, this is science, and I can't say that it definitely can't happen, but it's like really, really close to that. While Ebola spreads more slowly than other diseases, it is extremely lethal. Check out the simulation from the Washington Post to see how that makes a difference. There's a link to that down in the description. On our Facebook page, I asked if people were scared of Ebola, and hundreds of you responded. Despite coverage like this,
another case of Ebola in America.
A new case of Ebola. A Texas healthcare worker does have Ebola.
The response was overwhelmingly no, because most of us live in countries with good public health systems that are very well equipped to handle this sort of thing. But what if you live in West Africa? People are dying there. And just because I'm not concerned about getting Ebola doesn't mean that I shouldn't care about them. Without serious intervention, the situation in Africa will probably get worse before it gets better. This outbreak could persist for years. The biggest reason? The countries with the highest numbers of infectious disease deaths are the countries with the lowest amount of public health spending. In many ways, Ebola is a symptom of a bigger health crisis. It makes screening and monitoring, treating, quarantining all those infected individuals, and safely disposing of the dead extremely difficult. And as Dr. Margaret Chan, who's the director of the World Health Organization, wrote last week, rumors and panic are spreading faster than the virus, which is definitely not helping. There are some hopeful treatments being developed, like experimental vaccines or Ebola-killing antibodies from mice that are disguised to look human and manufactured in tobacco plants. That's definitely the best thing to ever come out of tobacco. Now, researching all these new medicines costs money that drug companies aren't always willing to spend, but luckily people with deep pockets are helping to fund some of the response. Viruses like this scare us because we can't see them. We can only see the damage they do. But fear and panic and paranoia and misinformation don't help us overcome challenges, they create new ones. So let's take a deep breath, trust in science, and get to work. Check out David Quammen's book, Ebola, for some stories of what we do and don't know about this virus from scientists who are working on the front lines. I'll continue to post updates on Tumblr and Twitter as new information comes out. But until then, stay curious. And to quote Douglas Adams, don't panic.
Right now, we're sitting in the middle of a storm. Not rain, though. There's an invisible shower of subatomic particles pouring down on our bodies. Every second, dozens of cosmic rays zip through us, millions per day. Most come from our sun, from the solar wind, but some were shot out